And welcome back to the Engage A podcast here on a beautiful Thursday evening, afternoon, kind of a gray area right there. Do not have the chance to be joined by Robby Elliott. Robby Elliott is on a business mission going to Traverse City this weekend to do stuff with his work and his company. So tell Robby to stay safe in the snow and enjoy his time. He will be back hopefully for the next episode. But Robby, unfortunately, has had a lot on his plate with moving and just the whole new year getting started and a lot of new things come up. And that's just how it is. Let's because there's a lot to talk about here. Obviously, Michigan winning the national championship, Nick Saban retiring way too early, 2024 look aheads, a lot of kids staying. Let's jump right in. Let's get this across the board. Let's talk about it. Talk about my feelings, my opinions, and how I feel, and to break down this game in by itself and then kind of like what it means. And I'm also looking for notifications on who is the next head coach for Alabama. So if you ever see me looking down on my phone, because I have Twitter notifications from a lot of college football journalists and publications, and Nick Saban is the next head coach or the Nick Saban replacement at Alabama and what dominoes that means. We'll see what it is. But first thing on the agenda, Michigan winning the national championship. Was going to record this on an earlier date, but I decided I kind of wanted to process my thoughts about the game, thoughts about the season. What does this mean for Michigan? How does this, how does this kind of change the landscape of what we could look at for college football, right? Because Michigan's not a team that, dominates in recruiting, really dominates in the transfer portal. Top 10 classes around there, anywhere ranging from like 9 to like 17 in the recruiting rankings. It's not that's not what it's been. It's been the SEC schools in Clemson, in Ohio State, these big top 5 recruiting, schools that have been able to just get freak after freak after freak after freak talent across the board everywhere. And these guys have been able to, you know, generate. And I mean, even with that LSU team, like there's a bunch of studs on that team as well. Like it's been dominated by the powerhouses of college football, the top dogs in the recruiting. And then, having that displayed on Saturdays, there hasn't been too much parity throughout college football. With this and Washington making it as well, which they just had, I believe, the number 36th recruiting class this cycle, which is crazy to think. But with the additions through transfer portal and obviously Michigan having, this is something that me and Robby have, gave Michigan a ton of props and a ton of credit for, is the guys on the staff and the player development and everything going on with that as well inside that Michigan program. That's what really matters, because there's programs that, over the past decade that have gotten a lot of talent, the Miamis, the North Carolinas, the Texas, USC before Lincoln Riley, and even during the Lincoln Riley era. Like there's a lot of talent that goes to these schools that they don't develop, the way, or, the big 5-star rating or whatever ranking they have on their recruiting profile. It doesn't always translate to how well they play. And the only reason why there's teams like Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, is the player development on those staffs have been able to reach the potential, right? It's kind of like, prospect rankings. Like this is what you believe, like this guy can be the highest, one of the highest ceiling, highest, you know, if they play and get maximized to their potential, that's where they would be. And obviously, we see it in the NFL with a lot of these like big time picks. A lot of them don't pan out because there's just something not there, not clicking, whether it's situation or work ethic or integrity for the game. Like there's a lot of stuff that plays into it. And obviously, Michigan has a ton of guys on their staff, and Jesse Minter being one of the best defensive coordinators, Sharon Moore been able to capitalize off of a crazy dramatic, national headline for the wrong reasons type of team. And they still got it done with all the distractions and everything in their way. Let's talk about this team 2 years ago. 2 years ago, obviously, Cade McNamara being the starter, a lot of studs on the defense like Ajabo and Hutchinson. Like this team, like I thought that team 2 years ago was really good, right? They were able to get in, and it's like, okay, what's next in our future? What's going to happen next? So last year, you know, this team goes undefeated during the regular season, looks very dominant in the Big Ten Conference Championship game. And I will say this is arguably, other than maybe the Bowling Green State game, so arguably that was the TCU game was the worst game in JJ McCarthy's career. And, what I said was going to be a big thing in that Washington Michigan game is bounce backs. Bounce backs were a very pivotal part of who was going to win, who was going to be like who was going to stick out. That's the word I'm going to say. Who was looking to stick out amongst the best? Because when you're playing a top team in the country, it's not about how much more talented you are. Because the talent spectrum, like there's a peak to it. Obviously, that like that Georgia 2021 defense, greatest defense of all time in college football. Like there was just that. That's the only time where really a separation of talent like that kind of overboards everything that like it doesn't matter. It really matters about how you scheme up things and how the game plan is. But mistakes matter. Mistakes matter in college football, especially with the parity that we're going to have because of the transfer portal and how recruiting is playing out. That's how it's going to be. So, with that being said, Michigan, what do they do this year? They minimize the amount of mistakes that they can have. If you saw, they were through the non-conference season, they were only above like the academy schools. They're like 120 something in pace of play because they just wanted to get out of there and get their wins. You look at the Penn State game, they still relatively played it safe, and they kind of just took advantage of what Penn State like wasn't able to do, which stopped the run consistently. Which I mean, Penn State did the best job that they could, but with the guys on the Michigan offensive line, it's really hard. And I knew that Aller wasn't going to be able to keep up and go point for point with this team. There wasn't going to be a back and forth. So Michigan gets the job done there. Against Ohio State, they just kind of played the situation right. They were not going to be the ones to have to make a crucial decision in that game, other than going for it on the fourth downs. But they let that game was going to be decided by Ryan Day, whether they won or lost. It wasn't going to be decided by Michigan. Michigan was doing everything they could, obviously, to win, but they weren't going to have the final say or the final shot because they didn't believe in Ryan Day, stepping up in the clutch moment, which he didn't. Then they go to the semifinal game against Bama. JJ McCarthy starts out really slow. This whole team just does not look very good, obviously, with these special teams mistakes. The defense is what kept this team in, but championship football is won by great defenses. I mean, look at the past at least 3 champions, 4. Maybe that 2019 LSU team was just so good offensively that defense wasn't like the biggest concern, but there were still a lot of good guys on that defense, right? So, like Stingley and Queen, I'm trying to think of other guys. Like there was still defensive players, and that defense was relatively good to win them games. But championship football is won on the defensive side. The guys and the scheme and everything you can do to get in place, defense matters more. And Michigan had arguably the best defense in college football this season. The secondary really impressed me against this Washington team, but what can complement a good secondary is an elite pass rush. And Michael Penix, he wasn't able to do things that he was able to do all season, other than that month that he got hurt. Like the Michael Penix wasn't able to be the Michael Penix he was against Texas. Obviously, that was evident, and he gets hurt in this game. And when that happens, or if it was something even lingering coming into the game, you're still playing out there and trying to give it your best effort. I thought Michael Penix played okay, but he made a lot of crucial misses and mistakes that led this Michigan team being able to really solidify and put this game, especially away at the end. I like the battle between both teams. Both these teams, especially defensively, credit to Washington. They played hard. They allow Michigan to get 2 explosive runs with Donovan Edwards, and obviously with the one with Blake Corum. That could be almost demoralizing. And this game could have been like the TCU Georgia game last year, where if you're not able to bounce back or, get a shot or stab them kind of in the throat or in the heart a little bit, you're not going to be able to win this game. Washington did a really good job of applying pressure on defense, being able to finally get in some run fits where they weren't able to break off a big play. JJ McCarthy wasn't being able to get off, they go for it on that fourth down. And, with Washington and a bunch of Hawaiian players, which I have said all year, and that's why I'm not going to try and say their names. But number 5, he's in the interior looking to be in the run fit, recognizes it's a pass, and he's able to get out on the outside, match up man to man, make a play on that, just playing textbook fundamental defense. He wasn't even looking at the ball. He made a pass breakup because he put his hands up, and there you go. That's a stop right there. Like Washington was being able to make crucial plays. Jabbar Muhammad got hurt in this game, and he still was playing good. Elijah Jackson was solid in this game as well. Obviously, Braylon Trice was definitely the best player on this defense this season. And he was able, while he wasn't, didn't stick out on the stat sheet, he was still doing his job generating pressure because that's the type of player that he is. Now, with that being said, Washington let Michigan take the big opportunities away in this game. They let them hit the home run plays. That's what it was going to come down to. Who can limit the most explosive plays? Michigan did a fantastic job of that. When Washington had success or had any success, it's because they had to drive down the field, something that they're not comfortable with doing the whole entire game. Which ironically, Michigan is comfortable doing the whole entire game. They had to drive down the field, and it was really hard because Washington, a lot of how they would generate points this season would be 20, 30-yard plus passes and the receivers making a play, and they weren't able to really do that in this game. Now, if you want to get into the technicality of the holding and everything like that, then, complain. The result happened. It's not really a relevant topic to talk about. Michigan dominated this game. And when it came down to the crucial points, which that's what it typically does in these types of games when teams are evenly matched, Michigan did their job. Michigan's the one that capitalized on those opportunities, was able to come out as the victors. Like, they deserve, as much as it pains for me to say, they deserve to be the national champions. Robby over there, obviously very happy that, Michigan did win this game, but he talked about it. Our preview show did a really good job of covering all the aspects of the game and why every team would win in every single situation. And Michigan just hit the right spot. It was a styles clash. It was a styles clash coming into it. Michigan's style was more effective. And now that it's over, it's a done deal. Michigan is your 2023-2024 national champion. And while it looks like they're going to lose a lot, is Jim Harbaugh going to be the coach there? Is he? Because that's a legitimate question, and none of us will know because Jim Harbaugh is not one of those guys that's going to, I think the school will announce it before he even does about what he's doing. Or if he goes to an NFL team, then obviously, that's going to be, the major reporting. Jim Harbaugh is not one for the media. You never hear, this is something that I've admired about Harbaugh, as weird as, he seemed to be made out, and just the, the things that this team just kind of gets made fun of and clowned on in the public perspective. Michigan's head coach, Jim Harbaugh, he might not be the most likable guy, but one thing he will never do is make the attention on himself. It's never about him. It's never about what he does or what he's done. Even in the national championship, he gives credit to all his players and all the guys on his staff because that's how it is. Yes, he's the leader. Yes, he's the guy in front, but the guys also around you and, playing for you matter a ton as well. And he wants the players to get all the attention and all the notice because they're the ones out there, doing their job. Everyone on this Michigan team, and this is simple as it is, everyone on that Michigan team did their job this season. Whether you're a red-shirted player, but you're giving good looks on the scout team, that's you doing your job. Whether it's, Chris Jenkins or Mason Graham having to make stud plays, fill up that interior and be disruptive, that's what it was. If you were JJ McCarthy, where he never really had to make too many big throws this season, but he did his job of putting his team in the best possible ability each down, each snap of the game, each drive of the game. That's what he did. Blake Corum, inside the 5, he did his job with that. Like it's a, everyone understanding, and this is what really makes successful teams, obviously, in the pros, at the college level, at high school. It doesn't matter. If you understand your role and what you're able to contribute and what you're expected to do, if you do your job how you're supposed to do it, it will lead to a lot of success if it's a well-oiled machine and there's good leadership, whether it's player leadership or coaching leadership. I think that's what Michigan did, and that's why they won. I mean, this team's been good for the past 3 years. Before that 2021 season, COVID, Jim Harbaugh, if he plays that Ohio State game, is he the head coach of Michigan going into that season, or are we seeing someone else enter that? It's a bunch of questions, yes, and you obviously will never know the answer or the what if that a lot of people like to bring up in sports in general, whether it's what if this coach leaves or whatever this player gets drafted somewhere else. Like one I hear all the time, it's just because I'm a Pistons fan, is what happens if we drafted Carmelo Anthony instead of Darko Milicic? We'll never know. It's a hypothetical world. And while you can do all the simulations runs on all these video games, because video games have gotten really advanced, especially in the simulation style, it wouldn't matter because it never happened in real life. And a lot of narrative and, all these things matter. Emotions matter, like everything needs to be taken into account. And, in a video game, it's not really simulated to that ability, and it never will be probably able to because you can't replicate what happens in real life. That's why it's called a video game and it's not reality. But final thoughts. Talk about the Washington side. They were not the team that anyone anticipated. Like they thought maybe a college football dark horse, top 10 team. DeBoer's a good coach. Michael Penix is a great returning quarterback. Their receiving room is definitely going to be one of the bright spots on this team. Defense concerned me coming into this year. If you go back and listen to that Washington 20 or what was it? Previewing Washington for the upcoming 2023 season or something like that. If you go back and listen to that on that podcast, I was very concerned about this Washington team defensively. Defensively, they worried me because their secondary concerned me, and obviously with them in the spring game and guys going at each other, like yes, it's really hard, especially when you're the second string defense. But even their first stringers, like they were not having a good time, in there, like not at all. Like they struggled against the second string unit, and I was like, oh yeah, that might be a problem. And while I will say they definitely stepped up defensively throughout the season at points, they never really played a consistent defensive game. That's a problem. That is a problem because you need consistency on both sides of the ball. And it's really, I mean, they won 14 games this year. Like credit to them. Like they did everything they could up until that point. But the thing that, wasn't not being able to play consistently defensively is really tough. And when they were able to play consistently defensively, their offense played so inconsistent that they were never able to get ahead or get an edge in that game. And Michigan was always the one in control on the scoreboard. And Washington had plenty of opportunities in that, especially in that third quarter, they got stops on Michigan and they just didn't capitalize on it. And Michigan took advantage on the opportunities they were able to capitalize on. And that's how they won the game. And credit to them. Michigan, once again, national champions. I say it with the straightest face possible because I don't even care. Okay. I don't even care that Michigan did win because they were a really good team this season. It's just, it pains me as a Michigan State fan, but I can put my bias aside and recognize greatness. Like that's what most people in this industry need to be able to do, despite even if you're the Locked On Spartans podcast or anything Michigan State affiliated with media, like you have to be able that Michigan is like their team was great this year. And they might be able to do it again next year. They might. we'll see what happens. Obviously, with coaching carousel, might be in a crazy effect this year. Who knows? All right, second big topic, and then we'll go into some smaller stuff and not necessarily national like breaking things. Nick Saban retiring. Okay. I've listened to a lot of stuff yesterday and today on the Nick Saban retirement because this is something that it was going to happen sooner or later. We just didn't know when. And kind of, you could tell there was a different attitude from Nick Saban and a different demeanor from him about kind of like taking in the moments, not necessarily being like, there's just something different to him that you just know like this might be his final year. And that's something that we brought up throughout the whole entire, even in our coaching carousel time, where we're like, is Nick Saban going to be the head coach of Alabama next year? And while I thought maybe he was going to run it back one more time, that wasn't the case. And now it's kind of who's next up for the job, right? And let me just make sure that let me just make sure that nothing happened. Okay. Uh yeah. No. Okay. Nothing. Um Michigan or no, sorry, not Michigan. We're done talking about Michigan. Nick Saban. Okay. Nick Saban is the greatest college football coach of all time. 6 national championships in 17 years, only having 29 losses and over 200 wins. I don't have it all pulled up in front of me. This is all just stuff off the top of my head. Averaging less than 2 losses per season, able to reach double-digit wins in 16 years after his first year. That's remarkable stuff. That he Nick Saban made what college football was for a very long time. Everyone had to play catch up with him. He was the dominant successor, and all the competition had to find ways to come up and beat him. And a lot of stuff revolutionized. And Nick Saban not only did he lead to a lot of success on the field, and for a lot of these players to get drafted in the first round, drafted in general, and go on and play in their professional careers. You got a lot of coaches opportunities to go coach at different schools and coach anywhere really in the country because of that those relationships that he was able to build. There is always something changing about college football. There's always he always would have to have a turnover on his team, and he just found ways to have success. Nick Saban was able to get, if you stayed at Alabama for 4 years, in every 4 years, approximately, he was able to give you a national title if you were in that 4 year class. So, that's the effect of greatness. That is Nick Saban doing Nick Saban things. And when it comes to the end, and a lot of these people bring up a lot of personal stories about him that I've listened to. I've never had the personal experience of being around Nick Saban. If he ever, now that he's retired and this podcast ever reaches out to him, Nick Saban, hit us up. Well, we'll be glad to talk to you, me and Robby both, because the influence, and when people talk about the GOATs, obviously influence matters. Like Michael Jordan revolutionized basketball, made it a very popular brand, and everyone wants to chase the legacy of MJ. That's LeBron, one of the greatest players ever too. They both get talked about, but the reason why Michael Jordan gets called the GOAT is just because of the dominant success he was able to have and the impact on the game. Same thing, Tom Brady, dominant success, but also impact on the game and how the NFL is looked at. Yeah. I don't know hockey. I couldn't tell you baseball. I mean, obviously there's phenomenal athletes in both sports like Wayne Gretzky, and then obviously in the MLB, guys like Barry Bonds, Derek Jeter, all these guys, Nolan Ryan, everyone. And there's a lot more notable names. And if you are a baseball fan and follow, Robby could tell you all about that. That is not something that I could tell you personally about. But we might have a new goat in Shohei Ohtani. So no. But we'll see. Just check again. All right, we're good. Um, yeah. So with that being said, Michigan's just you know, it's been a long couple days, but we're powering through it. Nick Saban. So what does that mean? What with Nick Saban leaving Alabama, retiring from the game of football? I'm interested. Okay, this is a point that I thought was interesting when it got brought up. Does he take more of a management role in professional sports? Because obviously he had a tenure with the Dolphins, right? And I'm wondering if he goes to the general manager side or if he just wants to enjoy his retirement. And Nick Saban can never do anything involved with football ever again, and no one would ever question him because he did more than what he had to do. There was no expectation of Nick Saban going to Alabama and him having all this great success that he had, right? Does he do anything else? Is he someone that's going to be involved, in the media? Maybe. Maybe he takes the Dan Mullen, Urban Meyer role. Does Urban Meyer become the head coach of Alabama? Probably not. The one get that I hear, but even though it's not realistic of him happening, D'Amico Ryans, that would be a good get for um God, dude, I'm blanking. Uh that'd be a really good get for Alabama. And then going into other things, obviously, Dan Lanning not going to be the head coach, which I think kind of gives an indication of, at least in house, who they're hiring or who the final two guys that they're down to, and they kind of have to make a decision. That's kind of where my mind goes. I think Dan Lanning would be a great fit. Obviously, someone that can coach like a long tenure of time. But I think also with him being at Oregon as well, Oregon is set up for success. The only negative side is it's on the West Coast and it's hard to pitch players to go over there in the pipeline of Oregon, Washington, Northern California. It's not the greatest talent pool compared to the South, but he'll get guys there. Obviously, Phil Knight and Nike, being really involved in their NIL program, like that's going to matter a lot. Now, some other guys, obviously Sarkeesian, we haven't really heard his name talked about too much involved with the job other than just an idea of could he be the next head coach? I don't know if personally, if I was the head coach of Texas and I just came off of appearing in a college football playoff semifinal and Texas hasn't had the success that it has, in over a decade. I mean, I don't have this job. I'm, doing this podcast, but uh, uh, if I'm Sarkeesian at Texas, I don't know if I take that job. Obviously, it's a bunch of hypotheticals and a lot of things come along the way. But Nick Saban gave this guy an opportunity and had a very close relationship with him when everything went bad down Sark's path. Is able to come back and you know there's a rumor that Sark was going to go take another job before he went to Texas, and Nick Saban told him like, you don't want to go there. You just don't want to go there because Sark wanted. I think back in Nick Saban's head, and this is all coming from I believe Josh Pate. So he said that I think, or at least in Saban's head, it was Sark's going to be the next guy for this job, and obviously, with him getting a job offer at Texas, that's a little bit hard to pass up on. Big national brand, opportunity for success. And yeah, Sark's doing a fantastic job at Texas, and I think he will for years to come. Kalen DeBoer to Washington. This one, a little bit skeptical on just because of Kalen DeBoer not having a lot of time in the NCAA. And his only big job has been at Washington, which is a completely different recruiting footprint than obviously him. He doesn't have really any ties to SEC. I think if you want to go for a home run, but there's a risk there, that's the option you go. And if Alabama needs to fire him, they will. That's kind of just how I view it and how it would go. I think DeBoer is an excellent head coach, especially on the game side. But something that got put together for me is that about at 100 and some out of 100, God, there's 133 teams in the FBS. Out of the 108 team, I think coaching ball games matters more than your recruiting. But when you're at the top 15 schools, recruiting matters more than your ability to coach on the field. Not that, your coaching on the field ability doesn't matter because obviously for Nick Saban it did. What I'm saying is that your recruiting pitch matters more because you need to land these freaks, and this is how you're going to win national championships. Now, maybe that's not how it's going to be anymore. Because I mean, yes, recruiting is going to matter, but a lot of these guys enter the portal, and with the portal additions that you're able to get, that success is also going to matter as well. So it's a very, as Joel Klatt says, this is the golden age of college football, and that's what it is. That it is the golden age of college football. A lot of things are changing. Is the change going to be good or bad? We don't know yet, but it is definitely a different time. It's a transition time in college football with everything happening. I hear Dabo. I don't know if you're Alabama, you want to take Dabo on. I know his alma mater's Alabama and everything, but with the style he wants to coach, yeah, I'm tired, guys. With the style he wants to coach and doesn't really want to, improve to the modern way, and we might see a Dabo Sweeney retirement soon. I don't think that that's really a beneficial route to go, but it's kind of safe because Dabo is going to win you ball games. I don't know. I I don't see it working out necessarily, but I like the Urban Meyer idea. I think it would work, but that's really up to Urban if he wants to do that or not. If Urban Meyer said he wanted the job, I don't think Alabama would say no. So, other than that, I've seen Mike Vrabel. I think that would be a good get. He's a relatively younger guy, and he's a excellent ball player, or not excellent ball player. He knows ball and he knows how to coach ball. Um, yeah, that's all about I have to say about Mike Vrabel. I don't really watch too much NFL, but I watched those Tennessee teams, and I mean, obviously the one this year was not great, but he's been able to do a lot at Tennessee. And I remember that 2019-2020 NFL season and the Titans, with Mariota getting benched, putting Ryan Tannehill in, and being able to elevate them to the playoffs. Like, that was huge. That was huge. I was like, oh, like, this dude's legit. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Another thing, um, I don't really have too much more on the next Saban, coaching. Who's gonna go get Nick Saban's replacement and yada yada yada. That's more something, it's hard to predict and speculate who's gonna be, the next head coach of this school. Yada yada yada, yada yada yada. It's a bunch of talk out there. And obviously, it sparks interest and it gets people talking, outside of, those media directed shows and broadcasted shows and everything like that. There's another way of, talking about it, and it drives intrigue and it gives a little bit of investment into it, and like, okay, who's going to be here? Yeah. So I'm done with that. Nick Saban, we will see, because honestly, I'm more concerned about, and I want to talk about who would be the head coach there. And then obviously, what does the staff look like? Kevin Steele retires. T. Rob, does he go be the defensive coordinator somewhere else? Georgia. Um, what does Tommy Rees role look like at Alabama, or does he go take another job somewhere else? Because I don't think he gets elevated to head coach. He's been there for one season. Does Alabama, go pick up Bill Belichick? Probably not. It's a cool idea to speculate, but yeah, I don't think so. I don't. It's hard. But if you wanted to say you want to play for one of the GOATs and keep that recruiting pitch going, obviously with the Nick Saban one, you're going to play for the GOAT. If you want to keep that, you're going to go play for Bill Belichick. Then maybe you go that route. But I don't know, because that's not really, is that a 5-year thing? Or, would you rather have like a 10, 15-year guy? Would you rather have potential in the next Nick Saban, or would you rather have I'd say like a bridge coach? I mean, 5-year and a 10-year and being successful, if that works out for Alabama, great. They would be able to find another guy in 5 years, reassess the coaching carousel pool. And, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, I don't really have too much to say. It's more of who does get the head coaching job and what would I think of them in that role. That's kind of what I want more to see, I'd say. All right, let's take a look. And this is something that I want to do. I'm going to pull up right here a way too top early, and we're going to react to ESPN's because, there's obviously better publications out there. But this one I think will stir controversy with me way more because, and obviously it's not finished. We still have a ton of spring ball stuff to go to. Guys still need to commit in the portal. We're going to have another spring transfer portal window. That's when, oh my gosh. I'm sorry for the yawning, guys. That's just something you're going to have to deal with. But that's when guys like, for example, with Michigan State, Keon Coleman and Peyton Thorne transferring out, like that's how it was. There's a lot of guys that enter. Obviously, Zachary Franklin as well, the Ole Miss. There's going to be players of some stature that are going to enter in the spring portal window, and it's going to change a lot up, or at least talk about a lot of controversy. Like Ty Buckner wasn't anything at Alabama, but him entering into the portal in the spring because Alabama didn't know what to do with their quarterback situation. That brings more intrigue into the sport. All right, let's talk about way too early. And let me pull this up for you guys so you guys could see this as well. And you just don't hear my, beautiful voice. If you're watching on the YouTube platform, of course. If you're listening on podcasts, then obviously you're not going to be able to see because it's, an audio thing, not video. All right. Number 1 team for next year, Georgia. They reload a lot on their defense. You lose Bullard and Lasser, but there's still a ton of young DBs in that room. You add guys like London Humphreys, who I think could be a big playmaker. KJ Bolden out of recruiting, he might be able to be a guy that you get in there. Obviously, Trevor Etienne, and that's just adding more depth into the running back room, I would say. I think him and Milton will go, oh, wait. Oh, so Edwards and Milton are departing. Okay. Well, that makes it more interesting. So Etienne, Georgia's going to have a good running back room regardless. And I think with Carson Beck also coming back as well, this offense is going to be poised to do great things. I'm wondering if Dominic Lovett stays. They lose McConkey, who was very pivotal for them this year. It's going to be very interesting to see. Interesting thing. You got Ra Thomas most likely coming back as well. I think this could be a little bit more of a pass-heavy offense. Etienne's a pretty solid receiving back. I'm wondering what they're going to do with these young guys and what they're going to be able to get. I mean, Allen, there's a reason why Dumas Johnson transfer out. Allen was able to step in and be, a difference maker on that defense for Georgia. Are they going to have the difference on the D line? Are they going to have the difference makers on the D line that they did 2 and 3 seasons ago? I think that's a big question going into it. Obviously, we'll see, when everything pans out, if that's going to happen. Number 2, Texas. I kind of like this. I really do. You're going to lose 4 important offensive weapons and 2 important defensive interior weapons, but you do have Quinn Ewers coming back. You do have a lot of young talent on this team. You still have a good running back room. You're still going to have a good offensive line. You get a guy in Kobe Black coming in. You get a safety and Andrew Makuba. God, I can't say anything. I think Ewers coming back really is, and if Ewers wasn't coming back, I'd speculate it more just because you don't know the potential of Arch Manning. Arch Manning. All right, there, that we're gonna get a ton of views now. No. What I will say is that this Texas team's gonna look different, but it might be for the better. It really might be for the better. I think there's a lot of studs on this team still. Whittington, obviously, being one of those guys. I think Baxter's going to have a great progression to year 2. I would like to see some secondary improvement. I think that's one thing that we all want to see. But, guys on the defense like Anthony Hill, like he's a playmaker. Burke, playmaker. Like there's a lot of guys that have the potential to step up here, and I think they will. I really do think they will. Oregon at 3, obviously a lot of returning. You get 2 quarterbacks in the portal and Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore. You get a guy in Kobe Savage that, was one of the best guys looked at. I will say that with Tez Johnson and Trayshawn Holden most likely coming back, I think that's huge. I really do think that's huge. Um, what does this team look like next season? And I want to see a little bit of improvement from them. I think that's what we want to see, right? We want to see this Oregon team, take that next step. And this is going to be a 12-team playoff format, so they don't necessarily, if they want to have the same type of season that they had last year, then that's what it's going to be. But I really do think this Oregon team is going to be very good. How do they regroup with some of the guys on their offensive line leaving? We'll see. Secondary, they got a couple key pieces leaving as well, but they have a lot of talent there, man, and they're only getting better. Finished with the top 5 recruiting class this year. That's amazing. Alabama at 4. I don't know how I feel, and it's going to really matter on the coach because you know there's a 30-day window for this Alabama team. You lose a lot, and I mean a lot of good guys on the defensive side. Kinstry, Arnold, Braswell, Turner. That matters. You lose Latham, one of your most important offensive line pieces. But I don't know. I really don't know. And Ryan Williams is also decommitted. So we'll see where he goes with that. Obviously, Damani Jackson and LT Overton are good portal gets. Julian Sands, one of the most promising young quarterbacks in this class that just came in the recruiting cycle. We'll see. At I'll come back to that when we're able to assess it a little bit more. This is the team that I wanted to talk about because while they do lose Marvin Harrison, yes, they lose Marvin Harrison. A lot of these guys are coming back. And then do they lose JT Tumalal? Oh, God, I'm mispronouncing his name, but you know who I'm talking about, right? You get Sawyer to come back. You get Tyleek Williams, which I think is a major addition coming back. You get Edmeka Abuka. You're only losing Marvin Harrison, Michael Hall, Steele Chambers, Eichenberg. Is Eichenberg coming back? I have no idea. I swear that guy's been around for a while. You get Will Howard to transfer into the program out of the transfer portal. That's a big get. That is a big get. I think Will Howard, comparison I made throughout the season, Will Howard's the better version of Kyle McCord. I think that remains to be true. Does Jeremiah Smith get utilized and some of this offense? You got Aaron Nolan, one of the young quarterbacks coming in. Can he develop and lead this team to success in the future? I think Ohio State's a great place right now, but they got to get stuff done on the field. They do. They really do. Michigan at 6. This one, I think I want to see what this team does through the spring portal because they will go out and get guys. And also, does Jim Harbaugh stay or leave? It's a big question. They're losing a lot on the offensive side. They're losing a lot of guys on the defense. Obviously, you see Michael Barrett, Mikey Sanders still. Do they get Colson to come back? All this stuff. What I will say is the only major defensive line piece that they will lose is Chris Jenkins, but you still have the 2 top guys, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, coming back. You got Will Johnson coming back. You got, I believe, Rod Moore and Wallace isn't a big piece on the defense, in my opinion. I think he's replaceable. I think they will find someone to replace him with. God, who am I thinking of? I don't know. Regardless, there's a lot with this team. I don't know. I think it's too early to make a prediction on Michigan. Ole Miss at 7. Yeah, they're doing a fantastic job in the portal and getting a lot of these guys. Guys that they're getting in the portal: Walter Nolan, Princely Umuleolen, Antoine Wells Jr., Tyler Barron. A lot of these guys. Chris Ball Jr. is a guy that I like a lot as well. And being able to return Dart and probably a lot of those guys on the offense, especially at the receiver position, guys like Wade, matters. It matters a lot. Caden Pearson coming back as well. He might be the best tight end in college football next year. Um, Losing Judkins is kinda hurts, I believe. You still have Ulysses Bentley, who's a pretty solid speed back. Um, Obviously Judkins going to Ohio State, that's a huge get for them. It's interesting. It's really interesting for Ole Miss. I'll come back to that. Missouri, and we're gonna keep looking. I just kind of want to, assess my thoughts and some guys that are additions on this team, that are gonna really matter. Missouri at 8, Abrams Drain leaving is kinda, him going to the draft is kind of a blow. Darius Robinson, Cody Schrader. They're gonna they have a lot of receiving talent coming back. Obviously, Luther Burden being able to return is a huge get. And if this Missouri team can be coached to the team that they were this season and take maybe, only get one loss or be able to, take off a team like Georgia, that'd be huge. That would absolutely be huge. We'll see. They do lose their defensive coordinator to LSU, but Arizona, yeah, this team is returning a lot. Obviously Noah Fafita, which is a guy that we thought maybe would leave. He's coming back. Tateria McClellan, he's coming back. They had a really solid defense, and as you see, the notable leaving is D tackle and defensive end. They had a solid running game this year. Dude, this team seems going to surprise a lot of people, and I'm surprised that they're ranked 9th. I thought ESPN would disrespect this team a little bit more, but this team's going to be really good. Oh, holy crap. I'm sorry. This team's going to be really good, and I expect them to win the Big 12 championship. I'm going to say it now. Unless crazy and drastic things or Noah Fafita enters the portal in the spring, I think with Noah Fafita at quarterback, they're going to be a really good team. They're going to win the Big 12. Notre Dame at 10. I'm really interested by this team. RJ Bowen is a really good edge rusher. Obviously, Bo Collins, Chris Mitchell coming in as well. Cam Williams. There's a lot of guys that I'm very intrigued to see. Losing 2 studs in Joel Alton and Audric Estime. Blake Fisher's another guy that's going to hurt to lose. Benjamin Morrison is one of the best players on this defense, and especially in the secondary. I think they'll be fine. I think they were a younger defensive team. They do lose a couple guys. They have good guys like Grayhouse in the receiving room. I think they'll be all right. I think they'll be all right. Washington at 11. That's something we'll have to see. I think Jalen Polk's coming back. Or no, is it McMillan or Polk coming back? I forget. You're losing a lot. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Will Rogers, can he be a successor there? Not necessarily get him back to the national championship status because I think that's going to be kind of hard to retain with the roster turnover. But can he lead them to a 9-3, 10-2 season? I think that's what they're a high floor team next year. That's what I'll say. If they have DeBoer. If they don't, we'll see. Penn State. Yeah. Yeah. You do lose a lot of big guys on the defensive side. Adisa Isaac, Chop Robinson, Kalen King, who really wasn't that good this year, Johnny Dixon, Olu Fashanu. But it's hard. It's hard to say. Portal acquisition in Fleming's interesting to me. You return both your backs. You return Drew Aller. I don't know. It's interesting. But Tom Allen being defensive coordinator, really good defensive coach. Let's see. Utah at 13. Utah, they have, Death Taxes and Kyle Whittingham winning you games. It's going to happen. I think Jaquinda Jackson entering the portal is interesting. Obviously, they're losing 2 of their backup transfer quarterbacks. Tre'Tavious Broughton's, hard loss. The key safety, another tough loss there. I think they'll be all right. Micah Bernard's going to be able to be the back that he was there before Jaquinda or in place of Jaquinda before. You got guys like Money Parks. You got Matthews. You got Cam Rising coming back too. So, and as long as he's healthy, I think they'll be all right. this Utah team, they're a very plug and play team, and they'll win games. They'll be another good team in the Big 12. LSU at 14. We'll see. That it's really, really tough to make a prediction on because they lose three valuable pieces on their offense. It's kind of who replaces them is what I want to see. Nussmeier, he will be good. He will be good. Oklahoma at 15. This team did a good job in their recruiting and transfer portal. Deion Burks is a really nice get. You lose a lot of offensive line talent. That's tough. I think the receiving core will be good with Burks, Angelo Anthony, and Farouk. Yeah. I don't know, man. Yeah, it's the Jackson Arnold season, right? And this is gonna be more some of Venables' guys. See what happens. Florida State at 16. I don't expect this team to be that good, to be honest. I really don't. Another one of those high floor teams. That's we'll break that down more. Tennessee, Nico Imulaveva is going to be one of the interesting pieces to look at. You lose your top running back. I don't know if Joe Milton's really that big of a loss. Aaron Beasley's a big loss. Wesley Walker, Keaton's obviously not a great loss you want to have. They do return Brew McCoy, who is a difference maker. I think Squirrel White's also going to be back for this team as well. It'll be interesting, man. Like I said, there's only so much you can know, especially with these teams. A lot of it has to pans out. And I really do want to see these teams play in spring football. That's the beauty of college football. Spring football. I wish there was an exhibition game almost in the spring where they kind of just, it's kind of what they do in high school football with a lot of the four ways and everything, just scrimmages, just, trying all your guys out there, giving yourself looks, seeing what works. You obviously don't want to put too much on tape, but and that's how it is. Oklahoma State at 18. They're gonna sit there. The return of Ollie Gordon obviously is gonna help a lot. What do they do? In the wake of Alan Bowman's coming back. Oh God. Jesus. Yeah, Oklahoma State's just gonna be one of those solid teams. Gundy obviously being a really good coach. They're gonna find a way to win football games. 19 Clemson. Can they come back? I don't know. They had a ton as McBuka, Nate Wiggins leaving, Terrenio Pride leaving as well, who's not listed on here, but he's another stud at DB. Trotter obviously going to the NFL. Same thing with Will Shipley. It's going to be tough. They do get Sammy Brown, who's one of the best recruits. They don't really utilize transfer portal, so we'll see. Let's see. How this Dabo player development stuff. And we'll call it the Dabo development process. We'll see how that turns out. They need to if they want to get back to where they are or where they were necessarily, not too long ago. I'm excited to see Cade Klubnik. We'll see what happens. NC State, here we go. This is a good team. Obviously, with Grayson McCall, Jordan Waters, Noah Rogers coming in. A lot of these guys, man, they are good. Yes, they're losing some talent, but this team, Dave Doran, sleeper in the ACC. This might be the Louisville of the ACC this year. And I think Louisville is going to be a good team, but I'm just saying a team that kind of comes out of nowhere, maybe not nowhere because this team's getting ranked in the top 25, but a team that's got a lot of good pieces on it. Can they put it together? We'll see. Kansas State at 21. I'm excited to see what Avery Johnson does, but I don't know. There's some good pieces leaving on this team. Phillip Brooks, Ben Sinnott, Trayshawn Ward, obviously Will Howard leaving, Kobe Savage, Cooper Beebe. There's a lot of guys on this Kansas State team that are leaving that are notable and going to be missed. What does Kleiman do to replace those guys? That is a question that will remain to be seen. Louisville. Okay. Yeah, there's some guys leaving. Obviously, Jawar and Jamari, being those big pieces. They did a good job in the transfer portal. Adding guys everywhere. Penny Boone, Colin Lacey, Tyler Shuck, bunch of defensive transfers as well. Tamarian Arnold, or not Tamarian Arnold. Tamarian McDonald is another guy that they added as well. There's some guys, and Isaac Guerrero is going to be a guy that they're going to add back. They add two very good edge rushers back by Golette and Rieger. Dude, those are key guys coming back. They are. Yeah. We'll see, dude. This is interesting. I'm very excited to see. Very excited to see. Brahms, Portal King, not Lane Kiffin. Kansas at 23, obviously with Jalen Daniels coming back, it's going to matter a lot. They lose a good amount of guys on their defense and some guys on the offensive line. I think this team is going to do a good job. I do. Jalen Daniels coming back. Devin Neal going to be back as well. And yeah, they just have a lot of returning guys. Lance Leipold, one of the best coaches in college football when it comes to coach games. Matter. SMU at 24, good team. They got Preston Stone coming back. They had a good defense last year. They do lose a decent amount of guys on their defense, but they're adding guys in through the portal. Named to point out, Omari Abor. I think he might be able the guy that's gonna, be able to. Ashton Kozart's another guy as well. Like these are guys that were high recruited guys, and maybe they just need a new change of scenery. SMU's, one of the better is probably top 5 group of 5 school to go to. Really is. Won the American last year. Nothing much else to be really said about that. And then Iowa. Oh, Iowa. Yeah, Iowa is just gonna, do Iowa things, man. There's nothing else to really point out about that. Sucks to see Cooper DeJean leave, but they lose their punter this year too. That's terrible. Yeah. Is there any teams that I think were left off this list that are worth mentioning at this moment? Sorry, I'm just going through and scrolling. It's been a long day, guys. It's been a long day. I have no one to mention as no USC. Oh. No A&M. Well, they don't have Jimbo anymore. There was Oklahoma. Okay, Kansas. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Miami, maybe. Maybe. Think about that. Sit on that one. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're missing too much here. I'm surprised not to see Miami on here, actually. Yeah, okay. I don't have too much else to say. Let's stop with my screen right there. I don't have too much else to say, guys. I think we had a lot to talk about today. Obviously, more information needs to be processed. There's nothing I see. Some portal news, but other than that, let me just refresh Twitter. See if anything is said. Yeah. No coaching carousel news. No room. No. Might do an emergency one if the Nick Saban coach gets figured out. We'll see. We'll see who that is. If Jim Harbaugh leaves too, I'm gonna be available the next few days. I don't got too much going on, so we'll see what happens. But make sure you like, subscribe, share, do all that good business, and enjoy the rest of your day night, whenever you listen to this podcast, because, people listen to stuff throughout different times of the day. So enjoy the next, occurring events going on in your life after you listen to this show. Thank you.